Welcome back, friends. We're going to add a nice feature that will allow us to basically exponentiate a sequence of values. So take the divide button, Control C, and then Control V, put it into position here. Right click, access as properties as usual. Open up the properties panel on the right side. Okay, make sure you're under button 1, the default name given to an object copy. Scroll up, punch into this box here and change that so it says BTN and then EXP for exponentiate. And then hit enter and then scroll down and find the property for the text. So you're going to change that so it says X. That's it. Just make it say X. Hit enter. So we have this button now. What we're going to do now is add another text box. Just make the button a bit smaller. It doesn't have to be so big. And now do this. Where it says text align, you can change that. Click into that text align property on the same button. You can, for example, make it over here on the left side. So move it into position. Because now what we're going to do is something a bit different compared to the past, which is go into the toolbox and then type txt, so get a text box, drag and drop that in here. All right, drop it in and then pull this back this way. And into this box, we're going to put the exponent. So make this a bit smaller. It kind of should look like this. So the x will refer to each value in the list, and then the exponent in that box will have the exponent value. For example, like a half or 2 or negative a half. It will work with all those cases. It's going to be really powerful. You don't need different buttons. Take that box there. Make sure you highlight that little box, okay, which is by default, again, called text box 2. And just we're going to make that into txt exp. So text box exponent, txt exp. And then scroll down. And that's really it, to be honest. You can leave the size as 9 point because it's kind of inside a button. Or if you want, you can change the size, up to you. Now do this. With this setup, double click on the button, not on the text box. So make sure you select the button, double click on it, and generate the code stub. Now that the code stub is generated, it should say btnexp underscore click. We're going to run a bit of code. Again, we remember we have our process input method defined already. So var entries equals, and then process input, terminate with a semicolon. From there, we'll say this, if double that try parse. So you have to use this try parse method all the time because you don't know what people will type into your text box. So that applies to every box. So if double that try parse, and then we'll say txt exp dot text. So if whatever is in that box is convertible to numerical form, we'll store it in out double exp. That's the exponent value. But if that fails, we'll skip that step. And then punch down a line here. Now we're going to use a bit of very compact notation to produce our output. So we'll say entries dot for each. This is allowed because entries is a list of doubles. So there's a for each. Put your mouse over it. Performs a specified action on each element of the list. So there's this nice little code construct called a for each. And it returns a void, so it just operates. And then from there, we're going to say the following. Now, action. Well, what action can we perform? You can take X. You have to have X to represent each entry, and then use the symbolism right here, lambda notation, and then LBL output.text. So you're going to take each X, and then this says perform some action on it. So the action will be this one. You're going to do a plus equals. So you're going to build up a string, dollar symbol for string interpolation, double quotes. We're going to output the value and the exponent, and then the actual exponentiated value. So we'll do that by typing this within curly braces x. So usually I'm just putting the brown parentheses in because I want to be correct with the math, so to speak. So I want to be very clear that this is the base. And then same thing up here. So put that symbol there, and then with another set of curly braces, you're going to put exp, the exponent. So look very carefully at that syntax here. All right, let me do this here. Zoom in a bit. So that looks like this, you see? And then after that, you're going to type equals and then do the actual exponentiation. So you can use the following math. That's a basic class stat, and there's a power method in there. So POW, power method. Let me move this over a little bit. And then you can just tell it how you want it to exponentiate. So you can type x is the value, comma, and then exp is the exponent, and then terminate. And then terminate all of this with a line as shown. Okay, so this is all of the code. It's a bit of a long line, but again, pause the video if you have to read through it. You really should type all of this up. Let's give it a go. So go over to WinForms at 5. You can click on that. Let it get built and loaded. And here's our program. So input some values. 1, 2, 3. Tab over to here. And then tab one more time. It focuses on the box on the button. Put a value in there like 2. And then hit the button right here. So does this work? Well, 1 to the second is 1. Correct. 2 squared is 4. And then 3 squared is 9. But again, the output is not neat. So terminate this, and as I've shown you before, go all the way down to here, to the end, and within the double quotes, do a /n, so to push down to the next line, and run it again. Give it a second to get generated. All right, 1, 2, 3, tab over, tab into the text box, put a 2 in there for exponents, and it tells you 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, that's correct. Now take a look. Changes this, for example, like 4, comma 2. Does that work? Well, 4 squared is 16, good. 2 squared is still 4, that's good. Try it with a negative exponent. So, for example, like a negative 1. Well, 4 to the negative first is equivalent to 1/4, that's correct. 2 to the negative first is equivalent to 1/2 by the meaning of negative exponents, that's correct. It's working. Now, if you try some junk in here, and you hit the button, nothing happens. At least the program, though, doesn't crash because, again, we are using a try parse method. Now try a combination of, put this in there, for example, 0.25, so a decimal, just one value, and put 0.4. So this is like 0.25 raised to the 0.4. Hit enter, and that does give you a value right here. No problem, that's the way it's supposed to be. Try it again with some negative exponents. So say 1, 2, and then -5. Okay, now it's going to be a little bit different because the base is a negative number. So try it with a +2. Pull down. Let me see here. So -5 squared is 25, correct. 2 squared is 4. 1 squared is 1. That's correct. Okay, and now try, for example, 0.25. You know what? Make it a more common one. Do a 0.5. That's like the square root. So in this case, it tells you that 2 raised to the 0.5, which is like the square root of 2, is correct, 1.41. And it also tells you that -5 raised to the 0.5, which is like the square root of -5, is NaN. That means not a number. That's correct. That's the way it's supposed to be. Terminate. I've looked at a lot of cases. Maybe you can find some additional ones, make improvements or whatever, but this is a good place to leave it. So I'll see you in another video.